Good to see you again. You're watching ARIRANG News. It's 4 p.m. here in Seoul, and I'm Na Hyun-kyung. We begin on the economic front. Korea's economic growth last year slightly improved from 2013 thanks to a rise in private spending and exports. The gross national income per capita also jumped to over $28,000, but the numbers don't always tell the entire story. Our Hwang Ji-hye starts us off.
The Bank of Korea says the domestic economy expanded 3.3% last year. That is 0.4 percentage points higher than the previous year. The central bank attributes the growth in 2014 to a rebound in facilities investments and a steady increase in consumption and exports despite a drop in construction investments. Output in the construction sector grew by a mere 0.6% last year, while that of manufacturing went up by 4% and service by over 3%. By quarter, however, the Korean economy is on a downward spiral. The on-quarter growth, which stood at over 1% in the first quarter, slowed to 0.5% in the second quarter. It then marked a slight pickup in the third quarter to 0.8%, but soon sank to 0.3% in the fourth quarter. The fourth quarter growth also marked the slowest pace of growth since the first quarter of 2009, when the country was hit by the global financial crisis. Korea's gross national income per capita last year jumped around 7.5% from a year ago to over $28,000. But the rise is also attributed to the strong Korean won trend rather than an actual increase in the country's purchasing power. The central bank says the local currency strengthened by nearly 4% against the greenback on an annual basis. Hwang Ji-hye, ARIRANG News.
And in an attempt to tackle the nation's snowballing household debt, the government has introduced a new program allowing mortgage borrowers to switch to low fixed-rate loans. Yesterday was the first day local banks took applications for the program, and banks were greeted with anxious loan hopefuls. Shin Se-min has the story.
The so-called relief loans introduced by the Financial Services Commission on Tuesday drew an astonishing number of applicants to local banks. In just a day, more than 20,000 applicants transferred a total of some 4 trillion won, or $3.6 billion worth of mortgages. They're all trying to manage their household debt by switching to the new mortgage rates, which are between 2.5 to 2.7%, lower than the 3% range previously offered. This opportunity to switch to a lower rate loan isn't available to everyone. The program targets lenders whose fixed-rate mortgage-backed loan is less than $450,000, or those with mortgage property values of little over $800,000. In addition, the applicants must be clean of loan delinquent payments for the last 6 months. With the new mortgages, the Commission is hopeful that household debt will stabilize as they allow debtors to steadily pay back loans over a longer period of time. The massive shift to the government-initiated mortgage program show that many Koreans are struggling to restructure their household debt amid the ongoing sluggish economy, a matter that policymakers have dubbed a time bomb for the Korean economy. Korea's total household debt rose over $500 billion in February from the first month of the year, surpassing the 1,000 trillion won mark, or $950 billion last year. Experts say challenges still linger as to how the government can strike a balance between containing the ballooning household debt and reviving the domestic economy by fueling consumer spending. Shin Se-min, ARIRANG News.
When hiring new people, the first qualification most Korean companies looked into was the applicant's educational background. But that may change as state-run firms are planning to put more emphasis on skills and experience rather than what looks good on paper. Our Son Jang-in has the story.
Yang Jae-hoon was hired at the Korea Cadastral Survey Corporation last June after 2 failed trials. His 2 years of working in the company's internship program and 3 job-related licenses were not enough to get the job because of his low English scores. But after the company adopted the employment system introduced by the government, his efforts were finally rewarded.
At that time, I had to take a test on common knowledge and English and not so much on my related major. It may have been an easy test for some, but I had to go through a difficult time back then.
The National Competency Standards divides categories for more than 800 jobs and specifies how much skill and knowledge is required to work in that field. It also provides a standard to evaluate the competency of the applicants. With the adoption of the system, job applicants will no longer need to worry about building up general qualifications such as high TOEIC scores that are unrelated to the job they want. And for companies, it helps them hire rookies based on their competency.
The employees that we hired based on the NCS were well prepared to be put in the field right away, and they carried out the job well.
The government plans to gradually expand the NCS system to reach all the state-run enterprises by 2019. Among some 300 public companies in Korea, 130 of them, including KEPCO and National Health Service, aim to hire 3,000 rookies based on the system this year. Experts point out that if they don't want this system to become another mere requirement for job seekers, schools and universities should focus their education on practical vocational skills. 손정인, 아리랑 뉴스.
Samsung Electronics is cozying up with Microsoft, seemingly putting their past legal disputes behind them. The two tech heavyweights have forged a deal that will pre-install Microsoft services on Samsung's Android-based mobile devices. Our Hwang Ji-hye reports.
Samsung Electronics plans to have Microsoft services and applications pre-installed onto its portfolio of smartphones and tablets starting the first half of this year. Samsung's new Galaxy S6 smartphones will be equipped with note-taking application OneNote, OneDrive data storage, and video chat application Skype. They will also come with an additional 100 gigabytes of free cloud storage for 2 years through Microsoft OneDrive. Microsoft's flagship software programs, Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, will also be pre-installed on Samsung Android tablets. Users that purchase Android devices through Samsung's business-to-business sales channels will be able to purchase one of 3 versions of Office 365, Business, Business Premium, or Enterprise that come along with Samsung's Knox security solution. Samsung says its goal is to meet the ever-evolving needs of both consumers and business customers and give them more power to discover new mobile experiences. The Korean firm adds that its latest partnership will offer users the mobility they need in their personal and business lives. The move comes after the two giants settled a lawsuit over Android patent licensing last month, and analysts see it as a prelude to more deals in the future. Some also say it could be a blow to Google, as Microsoft's apps may eventually replace the Google software that's already loaded on Samsung devices. Hwang Ji-hye, ARIRANG News.
And now the latest on the tragic airplane crash in the French Alps. Search operations have resumed, but there is little hope of finding any survivors, as all 150 people on board were or are presumed dead. Our Kwon So-ah reports.
Surveying the scene for a moment said it all. Authorities could see there was no chance anyone survived this plane crash in a remote part of the French Alps. Officials say the priority is to return as many victims' bodies as possible, identify them, and find out what caused the accident. Recovery efforts resumed at dawn, and authorities say the operation could take days. One of the plane's black box recorders has been found in the mountains amid the debris. The jet was headed to the German city of Düsseldorf from Barcelona when it plunged from the sky midway through the flight.
I was doing some odd jobs behind my house when I saw a plane passing by. I said it's a bit low.
I saw the plane at a low altitude for 2 or 3 seconds, and as soon as I saw that, I sensed it was going to crash.
Aviation experts say it's a rare incident as the crash happened in the middle of the cruise phase, which is generally considered the safest part of a flight. The majority of air accidents happen during takeoff or landing. Germanwings is a subsidiary of Germany's flagship airline Lufthansa, deemed one of the safest in the world.
It's the first time in our 60-year history that we have lost a plane in flight, and we still have to digest that. The most important thing now is to be with those who lost people today in our thoughts.
The nationalities of those on board are still being confirmed, but officials say most came from Spain and Germany, and many were from Düsseldorf, including 16 teenagers. German media reports that a number of Germanwings flights have been cancelled after the accident, as crew members have been refusing to fly. Reports have suggested that staff were concerned about a repair that was performed on the plane the day before it crashed. But the airline insists the repair to the nose-wheel landing doors was not safety-related. German Chancellor Angela Merkel said the crash had left Germany, France, and Spain in a state of deep mourning. Leaders of the countries affected are scheduled to pay their respects at the accident site Wednesday local time. Kwon So-ah, ARIRANG News.
And Korea's foreign ministry says there are no confirmed Korean passengers on the Germanwings flight so far. The ministry said it's continuing to reach out to its embassies in the region to check if there are any Korean victims. But it did add that considering various factors, including the route of the German airline, it's unlikely that there were Korean nationals on board. The U.S. is pushing to strengthen its trilateral cooperation with South Korea and Japan in terms of missile defense in the Asia-Pacific region. This, as Martin Dempsey, the chairman of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff, is set to visit Seoul this week after wrapping up his stay in Tokyo. Connie Kim has more.
Building an integrated air and missile defense system will definitely top the agenda. Embarking on his trip to Korea and Japan on Tuesday, General Martin Dempsey said the U.S. is making progress on an integrated air and missile umbrella defense system with Seoul and Tokyo. Dempsey did not elaborate further, and some observers in Seoul believe his trip is aimed at pushing for three-way missile defense cooperation between Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo. But this backdrop is raising questions whether or not the talks will cover the deployment of the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, or the so-called THAAD, to South Korea. Earlier this week, a senior U.S. official indicated that THAAD would be on the agenda when Dempsey meets his counterpart, Choi Yoon-hee, on Friday. Seoul, however, dismissed such claims, saying it's not on its official agenda. The American missile defense system is highly controversial. Washington says the deployment of THAAD on Korean soil is crucial for regional peace, while other nations, namely China and Russia, strongly opposes against the idea, saying it threatens their national security. Other topics up for discussion are the transfer of wartime operational control from Washington to Seoul, response options against North Korea's provocations, and Seoul-Washington joint military exercises. The talks are expected to continue when U.S. Secretary of State Ashton Carter visits Seoul next month for the first time since taking office. Connie Kim, ARIRANG News.
And Russia has once again expressed concern about the possible deployment of THAAD to South Korea, calling on Seoul to carefully assess the positive and negative repercussions. In a statement, Russia's foreign ministry said Tuesday that the THAAD deployment to the peninsula could complicate nuclear talks with North Korea and spark an arms race in Northeast Asia. The ministry added that it, quote, cannot help but be concerned, considering the destructive nature of the missile defense system's impact on international security and strategic stability. Washington's position is that the THAAD system will enhance Seoul's ability to deter Pyongyang's nuclear and ballistic missile threats, as well as enhancing surveillance on the north. Meanwhile, North Korea says the U.S. fabricated the story of North Korea sinking a South Korean warship Cheonan back in 2010 because it wanted to expand American influence in Northeast Asia. The North's military unit issued a statement at the truce village of Panmunjom. Now, this is a direct quote. Quote, the incident was orchestrated by the U.S. out of its intention to maintain control of South Korea and Japan. The accusation comes just a day ahead of the 5th anniversary of the sinking of Cheonan. An international probe had concluded that the vessel was hit by a torpedo from a North Korean submarine, but Pyongyang denies any involvement. Now, Korea has officially urged Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe to show genuine remorse for Japan's historical wrongdoings if he ends up giving a planned speech to the U.S. Congress. Seoul's foreign ministry says the Abe administration is probably aware of the attention and concerns shared by Korea and the international community over its understanding of history. The ministry added he should inherit the historical understanding of his predecessors and call on Japan to sincerely reflect upon its wartime atrocities. Now, Abe is scheduled to make a week-long visit to the U.S. at the end of April.
Bringing you the fresh updates from stories breaking in Korea and abroad. We give you a bigger and better picture of the world. Join Na Hyun-kyung live from Seoul. Every weekday, only on ARIRANG.
U.S. President Barack Obama has announced that America will maintain its current troop levels in Afghanistan until the end of this year. That slows the White House's plan to reduce the current 9,800 soldier force by nearly 50%. The announcement came after a meeting with recently elected Afghan President Ashraf Ghani at the White House. But President Obama said the U.S. would stay on track for a complete pullout by 2017. He explained the decision was meant to ensure that everything, and this is in quote, everything is done to help Afghan security forces struggling to protect what he called a still dangerous country. Ghani's visit is being viewed as a turning point in Washington-Kabul relations. American actress Angelina Jolie has revealed that she had her ovaries and fallopian tubes removed to avoid an inherited risk of ovarian cancer. Now, she made that disclosure in an op-ed for the New York Times after writing about her choice to have a preventive double mastectomy 2 years ago. Jolie said she had surgery last week after doctors had detected early signs of cancer. Now, Jolie's mother, grandmother, and aunt all died from cancer. She says the reason for going public is to raise awareness of options available for women who find themselves in a similar position. And back here in the nation, Korea's ICT and industry ministries have unveiled plans to invest over $5 billion into fostering new growth engines. One area with great expectations is the market for drones. Our Kim In-ji has more.
Korea wants to boost its presence in the global market for unmanned aerial vehicles. After the U.S., it was the second country to succeed in developing tilt rotors, which allows for vertical takeoffs and landings for aircraft. Even though it currently ranks 6th in the world in terms of drone technology, domestic regulations have been holding it back from gaining commercial footing, but that's about to change.
Korea's been behind because there was a lack of demand, but with the introduction of drones in the private sector, we see great potential for growth. We are coming up with new eased regulations to spur the market.
This is just one of the industries that is being eyed as a potential future cash cow. The government plans to invest over $5 billion by 2020 on 19 future growth engines, including the robot and smart car industries, as part of its creative economy drive.
We plan to increase investment for R&D, ease up regulations that are hindering growth, and create sophisticated management systems to help new tech industries become the pillars of economic revitalization.
The plan includes other burgeoning sectors like the Internet of Things and fifth-generation networks and is expected to be finalized in April after a review by governmental bodies and experts in the private sector. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG News.
How do you feel about your skin? Sending information about your health to your doctor wirelessly. Well, a Korean-American scientist has created a high-tech artificial skin that could be a breakthrough for health professionals. Our Park Se-young has the story.
You can clench your fist, and it stretches with you. You can pull and twist it. It won't rip. Plus, this artificial skin can also monitor your health. It was developed by Korean-American researcher Chang Kyung-in, who worked with a team from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. What makes Chang's artificial skin stand out is that it mimics the structure of collagen, which is what gives it the strength and elasticity of real skin. The new composition is an ideal platform for silicone-based electronic systems that sense the activity of the human body. Patients will be able to send their health information to their doctors by simply sticking the artificial skin onto their real skin, just like a Band-Aid. And because the electric sensor was designed to match the properties of human skin, users can apply it and remove it multiple times without damaging the device or the skin.
The structure of collagen is like a knotted thread. It can easily extend in the beginning, as if the threads are unraveling. When collagen reaches full extension, it no longer stretches and maintains its shape, just like untangled thread.
Chang says the study, which was published last week in the scientific journal Nature, doesn't just provide an advanced method of health monitoring, it also creates new opportunities for tissue engineering and biomedical devices. Park Se-young, ARIRANG News.
If you want to understand history better, you might want to try looking at some art from the past. Our Im Yoon-hee profiles 2 exhibits that will give more insight into the Joseon dynasty. Take a look.
One of the most precious treasures from the Joseon dynasty, lacquerware inlaid with mother of pearl. The shimmering works of art were most commonly made during the Koryo and Joseon dynasties, and few authentic relics remain in Korea.
The historical trend was to use motifs to make memorable paintings and drawings that can be appreciated in the future.
The Horim Museum has recently gathered a collection of 90 pieces of Joseon Dynasty lacquerware, and they're now on display for the people of Korea to enjoy. Across the river, another museum is offering a look at a different aspect of the Joseon Dynasty's art culture. These timeless paintings open a window into peaceful, serene settings. Works by legendary artists such as Kim Hong-do and Chung Sun pave the way for modern and contemporary painters such as Cheongjeon Isangbom and Sojong Byung-kwan-sik.
Cheongjeon Isangbom's works are similar to something you would see from a camera's angle. On the other hand, Sojong Byung-kwan-sik's works transform the scene.
30 masterpiece paintings done by artists of different styles and from different periods in time come together for this unique look into Korea's historical paintings. Im Yoon-hee, ARIRANG News.
Welcome back. I'm Michelle Park here with the latest weather forecast. The cold spell that had stopped spring from coming has finally passed, and the morning was a bit still cold. However, it turned out to be a mild afternoon. Now, daytime highs are expected to rise above the seasonal average here in Seoul and for most of the regions. However, spring being transitioning season from winter to summer, always remember the temperature gaps between the mornings to nights. Now, due to the influence of high pressure front, today we can expect us to be under clear sunny skies, although dry weather continues to sweep the nation. Today, more regions surrounding the capital and even the southern regions have upgraded into warnings. Now, with that in mind, let's have a look at the readings for today. So it will peak up to 15 degrees this afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Gwangju and Busan will hit up to 16 and 14 degrees. Moving over to other regions, Jeju Island gets up to 13, Dokdo hits down to 10, while Mount Kungang is at 4 degrees. Well, that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And that's the end of this edition of our newscast. I'm Na Hyun-kyung in Seoul. We'll be back with more at 6 p.m. Korea time.